All right.
Yes, so first off, uninstall Napster. Seriously. There's
I
your
don't have
problem.
Napster installed.
Oh, you think you don't, but it's hiding. It's lurking around the corner.
No, Napster hasn't hidden on my computer since they lobotomized it in the late 1990s.
You don't know that.
I do, because Napster is so bad at this point that it just kind of yells "Durr" all the time.
Is it still around?
I don't know.
I mean, besides on your computer where it's messing with Audacity without you knowing.
Well, I mean, there was that time where like Napster went away and then it came back as like a DRM music sharing thing, but not sharing. You could only buy music, and then like I think it went away because it wasn't very good.
Hi, we're not the Apple Store.
Well, I don't buy anything off the Apple Store either.
Yeah, but everyone was buying iTunes when Napster died.
Yeah, that's true.
It was like, ooh, music for 99 cents. That's actually more expensive than a usual album, but whatever.
Well, when you put it all together for the different tracks, yeah.
Actually, come to think of it, it kind of wasn't. Do you remember CDs used to be like, they ran the gamut between $14.99 and $24.99, and there could be anywhere from like 6 to 20 songs on a CD, depending on what you were buying?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of variation there. It would depend on what you're buying and, whether it was like a new thing or like like a collection of old things. Those were usually a little cheaper, stuff like that. I mean, the Wild Arms 2 soundtrack was 2 CDs and 176 tracks, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, those tended to be more expensive anyway, just because they had to be imported.
Well, yeah, but I still imported it, damn it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, gee, I could buy 4 CDs here or 1 good CD, so...
Yeah.
I mean, geez, what did we have in the 90s? That's when all the good music was pretty much dying off. It was just gone.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, Paul Gilbert is still alive.
Yeah, but I mean, that's when, like, that kind of music was popular.
Paul Gilbert was never popular.
There's a brief moment in the 80s when Mr. Big was popular. People knew who he was.
Mr. Big was popular, but Paul Gilbert is tragically underrated.
Well, so is Mr. Big if it comes down to it. I mean,
that's also
even
true,
when
yes.
Mr. Big was popular, it was because of one song largely.
Uh-huh.
And it was like one of their worst songs.
Yeah.
Didn't we have this conversation that time that I found out Paul Gilbert was in town and so we stopped recording?
We had a similar but different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I mean, Mr. Big was kind of known, but if you had mentioned Mr. Big to me back then, I would have thought, what, the boss from that Fatal Fury or King of Fighters game? What are we talking about here?
You mean the Kingpin?
He was Mr. Big, wasn't he?
I don't know. When I think of the name Mr. Big, I somehow think of the cartoon The Kingpin from the Spider-Man show back in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. It's just what my brain does.
Well, he kind of was the Mr. Big of that, I guess. I mean,
I don't think I even really liked that show. Like, I don't remember watching it.
Well, I don't know how anyone can. The only good thing Spider-Man is one of those things where it's like, I don't care about Spider-Man because I hate the character, but his bad guys were okay. So
I don't hate Spider-Man.
I despise Spider-Man.
I mean, like, I don't like the goofy kid Spider-Man that was in the recent several movies, but like the Spider-Man character is not bad.
I've never liked his character. I think he was meant to appeal to a totally different crowd than what I could possibly be interested in.
Well, I won't deny that.
He never felt as heroic as he should have. To me, it was always more like
Spider-Man, because Spider-Man was like, I mean, Spider-Man was kind of like the very flawed, self-questioning character from the beginning. So, whatever. But I mean, like, he had some good traits. Like, the original Spider-Man, he, was an intelligent, scientific student, and he, made the web material himself and stuff like that.
And?
I don't know. It just seemed like it was a nice touch to the character.
Okay, so
like, yeah, he's some teenage kid, and he freelances for some newspaper, but he's also pretty sharp, and he figured out this formula for this webbing material, and it just happened to match up with his other powers that he got, and kind of a victim of circumstance. I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe, but there's two big reasons. One, I don't like his personality very much, and two, I think one of the major reasons that I really don't like Spider-Man is that I used to read the Sunday comics a lot, and to me, he was just taking up a couple of panels that could have gone to something that could make me laugh.
Yeah. Well, the Sunday morning newspaper Spider-Man comics, I don't think those are the real Spider-Man comics.
No. Well, I mean, they are. It's just
they were all. Well, those were all like soap opera. Crap,
I mean,
right?
you were basically getting like one page of a full comic book throughout the course of a month reading the Sunday news. So you weren't. It took you forever to find out anything or to see what was going on. So none of them made sense. Like if you just picked it up on a random week and read, you were in the middle of something that was just like two things of dialogue that could be related to anything.
Mary Jane has cancer again?
And that's all it says. It's just two panels. The second one is where he says again.
And he's like web slinging at the time, but there's no explanation for it.
I mean, it's better than Garfield minus Garfield. It's just no context to anything that's going on. And then it was immediately followed up by Judge Parker, or whatever it was, that also did the same thing.
Doonesbury.
Judge Parker might have been even worse because I think it was Judge Parker. Was that what it was? It was Judge something, and it was just like this comic strip about this judge, and you would get one or two panels of her saying something. Like you open the newspaper and you go to read it, and it's just, so you're being accused of this, and then that's the end of the comic. It's like compared to today's fast speed internet world, it's kind of surreal to look back on that as a thing.
Yeah. Well, like I remember, what was that horrible like fantasy-esque comic that was just like it was like Valiant or something, Prince Valiant or something dumb like that. Ugh.
God, was that in the newspapers?
Yeah, it was in the newspapers. I mean, otherwise
you're not thinking of Hagar the Horrible, are you?
Well, Hagar the Horrible actually had its moments. Like Prince Valiant was just like a really bland medieval soap opera story.
You'd get the Spider-Man comic, and so every once in a while you'd get that one where he's just like staring at a bad guy, so there'd be no dialogue. Oh God, those were the days.
No, they weren't.
They really weren't. No, because well, they kind of were, because the newspapers had things that we just don't see nowadays. Like you can get everything.
They were newspapers. Like there aren't newspapers anymore.
Yeah, we don't. There's no news anymore.
Well, there's news. It's just not anything.
It's not in print.
Well, it's in print, just not to anybody who's under 75.
Yeah, they had. I used to read Slylock Fox every week. That was my comic, and I just looked at Spider-Man as something. It was kind of like I would give it that haughty stare, like you could do better.
Well, yeah.
You could be something more than what you are, and instead I only get one mystery a week. Well, that's a pity too, because it kind of makes Spider-Man feel more like a villain in the Sunday newspapers than a hero, because he's like my arch nemesis.
He's the comic strip that we deserve, not the one that we need.
Yeah, that would be much more true nowadays.
Well, maybe, I don't know. It would depend on where Stan Lee went with it.
Instead, we get a movie where it's like, hey, let's take a script and just throw the Joker on it and be like, okay, this is our movie for the year. Did I segue properly? I didn't segue properly, did I? This is what I get.
I think you oversimplified a little bit.
I think I did. This is what I get for drinking decaf, though.
You drink decaf?
I have it in front. It's sitting right. Look. Decaf coffee.
You need to go to a hospital right now.
Could be true.
Definitely true.
I sometimes say that to people on the street that clearly don't need to.
What? Go to the hospital or drink decaf
Yeah,
coffee?
they'll like look for a mirror to see if their eye is twitching or if they're like, am I having a stroke? I don't know. So, should we talk about the Joker?
Ah, a little bit, I guess. I mean, have you? You've seen it. I've seen it, right?
Yep, we've all seen it for ice cream.
This will be one of those. This will be one of those uncommon reviews where I've actually seen the movie we're talking about.
Yeah, well, the problem is that it wasn't really a bad movie. It would help a lot if you would watch one of the bad ones that I've seen, so that we could both talk about it. But
No, I mean it was a pretty good. No, it's way better when you just see the bad movie and I'm just like, are you serious? Throughout the whole thing, that's way better.
yeah, I don't think I'll ever get over your discovery that Ben Affleck played Batman. That was
That was like a discarded memory where it's like. Whereas, like, you said that, and I'm like, that can't be true. And I'm like, wait, no, I think I remember someone saying that, and I think I pushed it out of my mind, like a trauma. But yeah, Joker was a good movie. It wasn't quite as great as a lot of the counterculture people are saying on the internet.
yeah. I think that they're overdoing
bad.
it just a bit, and I think that the guy that
Well, go ahead.
I think the guy that played him did do a very, very good job of acting.
Oh yeah, the acting was very good throughout the movie. There weren't a huge number of characters, but those that were there were well acted and did their jobs well. It's important to note that I didn't know this, but apparently the director of the movie was Todd Phillips, who's best known for like the Hangover movie series. So like this is compared to that, this is a huge step up.
Yeah, it's a much better comedy, I thought.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he might have finally found his comedic niche.
In tragedy.
Yes.
Well, no, but I mean seriously, like the Hangover movies were not well written and not memorable, and I think I've only seen the first one, and then after that I was like, I don't need to see any more of these ever.
Well, comedy movies haven't been good since like the early '90s.
That's not true. There's an occasional gem here and there.
Very occasional, though. I mean, there haven't been regular good. Like, when was the last time you got anything even approaching a Naked Gun movie?
Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay, one time. That's another movie we should talk about sometime. People think that movie is supposed to be sad and depressing, and it's ridiculous.
It is supposed to be sad and depressing, but you have to look at it from the proper angle, and then it's very much not.
Yeah. This is a story about a child who decides he doesn't want to do chores, and so he defiantly leaves, taking his sister with him until they both starve to death.
Yes.
Only in Japan. See, like, I know there's like a culture thing there where it's like, it was in a dark time in Japan's history, and it was World War II, and a lot of families were separated and all these other things, and this kid's depressed. His parents aren't there. He's living with his aunt. He doesn't feel like he fits in where he is, and he thinks he's the one that has to protect his sister. But I mean, come on, it was just chores they were asking him to do, and so he runs away, and she dies.
Well, it's not just that, right? Like, I mean, Japan has even more of like a respect your elders honor culture, especially in the 1940s, than we have here in the U.S. And for some reason, we're told that we're supposed to sympathize with this character when everything he does is completely unsympathetic.
It really is. I would almost believe that the point of the movie was Miyazaki saying, "See this little kid? See what he does? This is what he gets. That's what he gets."
Kind of.
It really does kind of seem like that. And you can believe it when you see interviews with Miyazaki, like the whole thing about him getting angry that people have never seen a snake falling out of a tree. That kind of cements it for me. Like, yeah, he didn't want us to sympathize. He wanted us to not feel bad for this kid. Like, you got what you deserved.
Yeah.
Probably entirely not true, but it's one interpretation. And one day,
I think it's valid. I mean, like, if I make a movie and like there's a character in the movie, and every time that character is on screen, I have like an arrow that's like pointing at the character and flashing. It says sympathize with this character. That doesn't mean that I have to sympathize with that character. Like, it means that the person who wrote that thinks that I should sympathize with that character, but that doesn't mean that I have to.
yeah, and I mean, it really felt like that in a lot of places. I mean, I'm watching the movie, and the one character that you really are supposed to sympathize with, the little sister, you're watching this movie, and just like What are they doing? She's going to die, isn't she? I think she's going to
Yeah.
die. That kind of sucks. But man,
For her, but like,
she has no idea, and that just makes it funny.
well, it's not funny that she dies, but it's not.
It's
Like-
funny the way it happens.
I mean, she's more sympathetic.
Yeah, well, she's completely innocent in the whole. Hey,
She's
these kids are
completely
going to
innocent
die
in the whole
thing.
thing, and it's all his fault, and we're supposed to feel bad for him. I don't quite get it because the movie focuses on him and looking at things from his perspective, so he's clearly supposed to be the protagonist, but he's not a very good one.
Well, I think that the moment I decided the movie was a comedy was when she dies and he like sends her out to pond, not to sea, but to pond, like on a funeral pyre kind of thing.
Yeah,
And I'm watching this and I'm just thinking this is the moment where like this kid really doesn't know what he's doing, and you become fully aware that it's just like this is built into his character that he just can do no right.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think you never saw Lost, did you?
No, I never did.
Yeah, I went through that whole show, and I believe the kid in Grave of the Fireflies, if he had grown up and lived, he would have been Jack from Lost. And anyone that hears this and saw that show will fully understand what I mean.
That's fair.
No, yes.
We kind of got sidetracked, didn't
Oh,
we?
we got sidetracked big time, but now I have to tell the story. I have to tell the story.
Okay,
It's a
go
very
ahead.
short story, but
Uh-huh.
so Jack was kind of like presented at the beginning of Lost as this leader character, but everything he did, a lot of times not even through the fault of his own, but everything he did just got royally screwed up. And so every time you saw him, you were expecting it. And the whole show goes on, and you keep thinking, well, at some point it's got to turn around, like something's got to go right for him, right? And it never does. It really never does. And this culminates in a scene where he's in a hospital, and he tries to buy a candy bar from a vending machine, and it gets stuck, and he gets angry and slaps the machine and just like leans his head against it in this utter look of defeat.
Yeah.
And we were watching this in a group, and everything is pretty much quiet. A couple people are chuckling, but like the minute he slaps the machine, Ramon just belts out, "Jack, you can't do anything right, can you?" And he said something like, "Jack's failure knows no bounds." That was it. And to me, that was the greatest moment in the entire show.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, we got royally sidetracked here. So let's drop the.
Let's get back to it.
Let's drop the royalties, get rid of the king and queen, and pull out the Joker.
You mean?
Is that a bit better of a segue? Did I do it better that time?
No.
That was pretty
awful.
bad, wasn't it?
It was really bad.
Well, sometimes you gotta.
Look, we're gonna review the Joker now, okay?
Yeah. All right. So
That's our segue.
let me start with the disappointment first, because there was a disappointment. Now, I liked the movie, and it takes a lot to get me to like a movie. But when it first came out, I thought it was going to be horrible, just looking at the previews. But the more I let it linger, the more I thought about it. I was like, well, if they get crazy right, that's kind of what I want to see. Like, I want to see the Joker either being crazy or becoming crazy. One of those two things, because that's the fun of watching the Joker. If you're going to do a whole movie about the Joker, that's what you have to see for it to be interesting.
Yes.
Because if it's just, hey, look, it's the Joker, and there's going to be some supervillain plot, and he's going to do something, but then there's like no hero in the movie that's going to come and stop him, that ruins the point. So,
well, it's an origin story, so we know that the Joker later goes on to do stuff. Hypothetically, right? We know that if this Joker is the Joker, then we know that he goes on to later on do stuff, and so we can't finish the movie with him being defeated. Like, that would not work out.
yeah,
right?
but obviously you can't just have a movie where it's just some normal guy, and at the end of the movie he decides to be the Joker and is suddenly crazy. So,
well, no, yeah, you have to build up to it.
So getting there, the chase is better than the catch. And the disappointment in this movie was that everybody was talking about how dark this movie was, and just how people were getting up and leaving the theater, and I'm listening to this chuckling like, well, this might deliver after all. And when I finally saw it, I was looking at this like, these people wouldn't be able to handle Watership Down.
Oh no, 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 no,
I mean,
no.
this movie wasn't even as dark as Higurashi, and
No, it wasn't.
like 50% of Higurashi is kids
It
playing
wasn't
games
even.
together.
It wasn't even really that dark. It was just kind of nihilistic.
Yeah, yeah. It was filmed in like a ratty Sesame Street looking neighborhood,
Yeah.
and you know,
But like there wasn't a lot of depth to the darkness, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah. It was just like, ooh, things are depressing. All right, so here's how the Joker is going to become the Joker. That was the
Well,
disappointment
I mean,
of the movie.
it was really interesting to see the characters' like thoughts about what his life had been and how he had grown up and all that stuff get torn away from him bit by bit, right? So like he's like, oh yeah, my mom something something, I gotta protect my mom, I have this disorder where I laugh uncontrollably for no reason, and then he's like, oh, oh maybe so. I mean, I didn't really feel any interest in the story until about the point where he read the letter that his mother had written.
Yeah, well, there wasn't
Like,
much of a
like
story going on until that point.
yeah, it was just kind of him getting kicked in the head over and over again.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks. I mean, you know, there was the right from the very beginning. They're like, okay, this guy, he's a clown in the 1980s. He's gonna get, he's gonna be the laughing stock of stuff, and not because he wants to be. And then he just makes a bunch of really bad choices, and then I felt kind of sympathetic when he started laughing and those guys came over to beat the crap out of him. But like, and like when he when he started shooting them, it was like, okay, those first two were legitimate self defense. Third one, not so much. And it was like,
Yeah, the third one wasn't at all, but that's the point where the story kind of starts to unfold about what's really going on, because
well, it wasn't though, because like that happened, and then he like went home, and then like there wasn't really anything that happened for a while that was regarding to that, other than the city around him was doing stuff, but we didn't get to see it.
well, no, it's a significant part of the story, because up until that time, they're kind of, the idea behind the way they filmed this movie to me is that they were constantly, it was a barrage of making you sympathetic to someone who you knew was going to be a horrible villain. And the movie persisted in that for the first half of the movie till it gets to that point, and then right at the point where he's in this he's in this subway train and he's being attacked by these guys. Right up to that point, that the whole movie had been making you sympathetic to him.
Yeah.
And then he takes out two of them, and you're still sympathetic because he's defending himself. But then
Yeah.
the one runs away, and now you've got this conflict of like, part of you is like, man, if I had put up with that much, would I have been
Well, no,
at that end?
that's the thing, is that even though I recognize that the third shoot was not legitimate self-defense, I still kind of felt a little sympathetic, right?
Yeah.
Like, in the sense that, he's been getting beat up by these three guys, and it's like this guy just decides, oh, I'm going to run away, and that makes it all right. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's complicated, right? But I still didn't feel any real attachment to the character. I mean, yeah. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that aside from a couple of scenes that were interesting, the first half of the movie, up until the point where he reads that letter, I was like kind of looking at my watch almost. I was like, is this really going to keep going like this for this long?
I was getting worried for a while too. When he read the letter, that was when I was like, okay, this is where things are going to get a little exciting. And it never really got exciting so much as,
Well, no, but there was progression of plot at least.
yeah.
Some stuff started happening, right? So him reading the letter, encourages him to go try to meet Thomas Wayne, which leads to a bunch of things. And we're not really sure whether all the things that happen between him and Wayne actually happen, or if they're in his head, which is kind of interesting.
Well, did they ever really present it at any point that could be in his head though, or was that just...
Well, no, I mean, think about it. He's in that group of people, right? And they're outside the theater, and somehow, magically, he just happens to make his way through, find an opportunity to get under the police barricade. He walks in. He somehow has a bellhop uniform all of a sudden, and then he's in there. He starts bothering this guy in the bathroom, and the guy doesn't like start yelling for help or anything. He punches him in the face. That doesn't seem realistic to me.
Well, it may not, but I don't think that there's any real indicator in the movie that there might be things going on in his head that aren't real. See, that's the problem.
No, there's all kinds of stuff that happens. The first scene where he imagines himself vividly in that Murray show, or the whole thing with the girlfriend that wasn't really there. Like, those are all things where he's hallucinating, and we're seeing the things around him through the unreliable narrator eyes.
Was that what they were talking about? Because I had heard something that the what was it, the writer or the director had specifically written it so it's like you could decide whether anything was actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, well,
kind of like an Umineko thing,
I've
where
watched a bunch of. Well, Umineko was way smarter about it.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah. See, because here it's just like they presented you with all these scenes, but I don't really think there is a clear indication.
No, I mean,
of this.
it's like the first chapter. It's like the first chapter of Umineko. Nothing's in red, so there's no solution.
Yeah, there's no way to really look at it and 100% say that things are happening in his head, because it's entirely possible that the first scene where he went to see, the way I interpreted it when I watched it, I didn't even think about it not being real. The way that the way that I saw it was
coming later on.
He had gone and he had ended up on that stage with that guy. And the guy, and that was a special moment to him. But then the next time he sees him, he's being made fun of by him, and the guy doesn't even remember him. That's how I interpreted it. So I guess I could see where the other interpretation holds, but there's really nothing in the story itself that says these things aren't happening to him. So there's no way for the viewer to, other than to like choose to believe that themselves, could come to that conclusion.
Well, you can probably look through and make cases if you.
Yeah, you can make the cases, but
there's going to be a lot of people doing that when it comes out on Blu-ray, for instance.
Yeah.
People saying, "Oh, I have a theory that this scene is in his head, and this scene is not, and here's my evidence, and here's not my evidence." On a single watching it, though, it's hard to.
Yeah, because like in Umineko, they outright tell you that some things you're seeing probably aren't real, and so it opens that door for like, well, what am I supposed to interpret everything?
Well, I mean, if you show a person. If you show the protagonist having a vivid hallucination, and then cut back to him, and like, yeah, it was a hallucination. From that point on, the narrator is unreliable, and you can at least start to guess, or at least try to figure out what's real and what isn't. Right? They do that. It's basically the first scene of the movie. It's the second scene of the movie, basically.
Well. When was it really established that it didn't happen, though?
Well, when they showed him just back sitting in front of the TV and nothing had happened, right?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Where he was.
Yeah, the second scene where he sits down to watch TV, and then he starts dreaming up this scenario where he's actually in the audience at the Murray show, and so on and so forth.
See, I had interpreted that scene verbatim. That
it was
just
that's
a cut.
That's almost certainly a hallucination. It never happened.
I had taken it as a cut to him back at his apartment watching the show again and having good memories of it because that happened.
No, I don't think that's the way that was. Because
now it's open to interpretation, so it can be either way.
No, I think it's fairly. I think you'll have a hard time arguing that actually happened, because he would recognize him otherwise. If he had been on the Murray show and Murray had like given him a hug and stuff, that would not be that he forgot him, almost certainly.
No, it's just hard to reconcile that after having thought of it the other way, where it's like, oh, he doesn't remember him, that's how much he actually cared. Like, I thought that was the impact that scene was supposed to have. Like, he sees him again and he makes fun of him on his show, even though he should know who it is because he'd been on his show before. So
even that part doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it's like, why would this guy suddenly start to pick on the movie supposedly takes place about 1981, because people have looked at what movies were actually playing in the theaters that show up in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the kind of thing that a talk show host would have done in the 80s anyway.
Yeah, that's true too. I hadn't considered the timeline. I actually 1981. What movies were on those posters?
I forget.
No, I remember I remember seeing one of them. I can't remember which poster it was though.
There was a marquee on the movie theater too, where they just had some titles.
Yeah, up until I saw that, I actually thought that they were just doing some like anachronism Gotham kind of thing.
No. I mean, the movie has to take place. I mean, there were no smartphones. There were no cell phones really, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was definitely taking place in probably the approximately the early '80s.
Yeah, they had. I guess if you can say that a lot of the scenes didn't happen, then almost the entire thing could be in his head. Like,
Well, that's the thing is that people have gone that far, and they've said, "Well, what if the whole movie is basically in his head? Because he was in the mental institution at the early part of his life. What if he's always in the mental institution? I mean, I don't think that's worth us arguing about this because we're not going to find any answers without like going over the movie with a fine-tooth comb, which neither of us is going to do.
I mean, the only absolute clue that things are happening in his head is that they're implying that other characters had things that were happening in their head, like the woman that was supposedly his mother didn't really know what was going on, and
Well, no, but the whole imagined girlfriend thing is another big one.
I don't remember that scene.
The whole thing where his relationship with what's her face was
The woman that was at the comedy show.
yeah, the imaginary girlfriend where she shows up in 3 scenes and then doesn't show up again for another 6 scenes, and in that scene he basically walks into her apartment and she's like, "Who are you?" "Oh, you're that Arthur guy."
Wait, that was the same person?
Yeah, same person.
I thought it was supposed to be a different. They all look different to me.
No, that's the same person. They who?
Well, I saw the same black woman, and it looked like 2 different black people. So I've got like some inverse racism thing going, where they all look different to me. It's like I work with a guy every day. I see him. I'm like, "John, my name is Bill. You've known me for 5 years." "Oh, I thought you were John." And then the next day, hey, how's it going, Phil?
Well, no, they all have to be names of people. Like, it has to be like, wait, who are you? It's like, "I'm John. I've worked with you yesterday and every day for the past 6 months."
All of which you have
okay.
said to me, "Who are
Well,
you?"
it's nice to meet you, John. And the next day you're like, "Who are you?" It's like, "I'm John." "Really? I feel like I've never met you."
No, I honestly, I didn't pick up on the idea that he was hallucinating any of that in the movie. I was taking it all as they presented it to me. So when they showed the woman the second time, and I was like, "But I thought she knew him," and she didn't recognize him except for having met him in the hall. I was like, "Oh, this must be a different person." I must have just...
No, it was the person he was fantasizing to be his girlfriend.
Yeah, that was... So that I guess is a pretty clear indicator. I guess I can't argue that. I really did think they were 2 separate people at that point, because they didn't really... I don't think... They showed her like one time after that with like a different haircut, I think. Or no, that was before then, when he was in the hospital with her.
Yeah, he was in the hospital with her, but he wasn't really there, because later on they show that same scene and the seat is empty. So it's But yeah,
That just makes the movie a little weirder. It actually makes it a bit smarter in that regard, but still.
No, it was pretty smart in that regard. Like they kind of hint that he's mentally ill, right? So they did a pretty good job of representing that, I think. He's having delusions of grandeur. He's having vivid hallucinations. He's misinterpreting things that other people are doing and saying, right? So it was pretty interesting in that sense. But at the same time, there was just that long chunk in the middle, like where right before, up until the point where he read the letter, where it's like, okay, he's just getting stomped on. I get that, but like, I don't know. There were a bunch of scenes where like it was just a shot of someone walking and really loud music in the background.
Yeah,
I didn't.
That whole scene where he was dancing down the staircase, like I looked at that as I was looking at that and thinking, this is a scene I would have cut from this movie. Kind of like, do you remember?
Oh no, totally, because that scene is basically him showing that he's come to terms with what he is going to be, basically. Like that was his turnaround, basically.
Yeah, but it didn't really feel like, between the way he was dancing down the staircase and the music that was playing and like how...
No, it's the manic to the depression, man.
I mean, I guess, but it really felt like it didn't fit anywhere in that movie.
I don't know. I think it worked.
It worked, yeah, but it didn't.
And the thing about it that I think was so good was that he was dancing down the stairs. And he's like, he's realized what he's going to do, what he's become, how he's going to move forward from here, and it's punctuated
Yes.
by him being pulled back to reality by the police being like, "Hey, we want to talk to you," and then having to run and getting hit by a car and getting stuck in a subway and all that stuff happening.
That was the part of it that I liked when the police interrupted, because I was like, this is kind of going on too long, and I kind of don't. I kind of feel like the movie is walking away from me at this point. But then when the police interrupted, I was like, okay, we're back on track here. Let's.
Well, that was the great part of it, right? Because he's like, "I'm free now," and it's like, "No, you're not."
I kind of felt like when I was watching it that it was like the music and dance scene in Shaolin Soccer, that when they released it in theaters here, they put it back into the movie, even though Stephen Chow had clearly taken it out of the movie. And one of the things that I definitely want to point out is that he has the Joker laugh to end all Joker laughs. Like he did for the Joker laugh what Heath Ledger did for the Joker in The Dark Knight, basically. He got a nice crazy laugh out of it, and it's one that you can associate with that face now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I mean, he put work into that. You could see he was like straining under the effort of doing that laugh in every scene.
The thing about it was that it was kind of the same laugh that he did when he was laughing involuntarily, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it was not, the thing about it that I liked was that it was not over the top clowny. It was just a laugh, but it was very distinctive.
I actually meant when he was doing it involuntarily. I wasn't really distinguishing between that or when he wasn't. So the laugh was good.
Yeah.
It was the real flavor of the movie. Because if it hadn't, I think that if there hadn't been those moments that were punctuated by that laugh, which on the one hand, if you were just to hear it and not know anything about it, you would think this guy's crazy, which is what everyone else around him felt. On the other hand, the movie tells you why he's doing it, so you're sitting there like you've got that duality going on in your head. It's just.
Well, I mean, when I saw those scenes with him laughing, I was like, man, it would be so close to impossible to actually function in society that way. Like, man, like if this was a real illness that a significant number of people actually had, it'd be really hard to function in society like that. Because it's different from just like stuff that's more well known, like where you just like yell stuff or whatever. But if you just laugh, it's just like it's very hard to. That was the other thing, was like he never was like it seemed like there were pauses in the laughter, but he never stopped to say like, I can't help it, I'm sorry, or anything like that.
It's like a really depressing equivalent to the sarcasm sketch from what was that, Kids in the Hall, the guy that only could speak sarcastically.
Oh yeah, that guy. Okay.
But every little thing like that really should have really clued me in about the whole what's real and what isn't thing, because that actually is a point in the movie where he outright tells you that some of the things you think are real might not be. When the police are asking him about the card and about the laughing, and he says, "What do you think?" and walks away. That kind of at that moment, it's like, well, maybe it's not real. Maybe he just does that.
Well, like, so I've heard someone say that they thought that it was possible that when he read the records from the asylum, from the hospital, that he realized that the laugh was not an actual involuntary thing, but that he was really doing it or something like that. I don't know. I haven't really thought too much about it, but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't seem to do it involuntarily anymore after that point in the movie, I guess is the point that is made.
Well, either that. I mean, that's another interpretation thing, because it's like either that, or maybe he just wasn't feeling upset enough to be caused to laugh because he had embraced the Jokerdom. But
maybe.
I don't know. Are there any specific scenes that we should really talk about in terms of review? Overall, I thought the movie was good, and it wasn't a good movie. It wasn't particularly well paced, but.
Well, that's what I'm saying about like the first half, where it's like I'm kind of looking at my watch, where it's like, yeah, some bad stuff happens to him, and he's like sitting in a thing talking to the counselor, but there's not really any tension in the dialogue. I mean, I I hazard to say that the buildup was necessary to have a real buildup later on, right? Like, if he just snapped and went crazy at the very beginning of the movie, there's not really a whole lot of reason behind it.
Yeah.
But if, like, he gets kicked while he's down in a number of ways throughout the movie, then it becomes more and more understandable when he actually does decide to just go full evil. The ending scene is fantastic. The final few ending scenes are really, really good, tense dialogue, and you're not really sure what's going to happen. And you know they really captured that kind of late '70s, early '80s aesthetic.
Yeah, they did a great job of
places.
that, and I was watching the movie and I was thinking like the way everyone else had talked about it was totally different than how it came off to me. I was watching it thinking it really felt like one of those old like '70s or '80s movies like Mel Gibson's The Payback. Or something where like everything is kind of dark and gritty looking, and you know the good guy is actually a bad guy, you know, the hero of the movie, that kind of thing. And then it turns out I had heard that the script resembled two of Robert De Niro's movies, if you kind of examined them from afar or something. Like, what was...
Well, Taxi Driver and The Deer Hunter.
Yeah, so that kind of fits that aesthetic too.
Yeah, I've never seen either of those movies, and I'm sure that they're... I mean,
Me neither, but the time period
if,
was right, and it was Robert De Niro.
Right. Well, I mean, that's probably why they had him in the movie, is because, like, I mean, there was definitely some homage aspects to the Taxi Driver, especially. But, like, people are saying that makes the movie as a whole uncreative, and I don't think that actually...
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, that would be like saying Umineko was uncreative because of how heavily it was based off of, and then there were none.
That's true.
And I would probably slit someone's throat if they suggested that. It may have come to people's attention that I brought Umineko up several times during the discussion of this. That's because it's the greatest thing.
It is the greatest thing.
Single greatest thing ever written. Nothing will ever beat it.
It single-handedly it caused a resurgence in the closed room mystery genre in Japan.
Yeah, which is still going.
Which is still going.
See, this is what's funny though. It's like we actually like the movie, so it's harder for us to really stay on track here because we
don't need to insult every movie that we review. I mean, you know, we can definitely say certain things are interesting when we see things are interesting. It gives us more credibility when we say things are not
well, I mean,
interesting.
Let's be honest. It's easier to be funny when you're insulting something than when you're praising it.
Maybe.
No, that's almost a certainty. Like there's so much more material when you're like attacking something and being like you know trying to point out the flaws of something.
No, I think that well thought out compliments can be almost as good as a good snark.
Yeah, but you'll never have as much material because you can't draw on that. Well, how many things can I compare this to that are funny that are stupid as opposed to it's easier to find funny and stupid, right?
Well, no, I mean, funny, yes, but not necessarily insightful.
Yeah, well, not necessarily, but we're talking, you know, it's easier to poke fun at something in a negative sense. It's really hard to, you know, get a good joke in here or there for something that you're praising, is my point.
Yeah.
It's a different, it's an entirely...
Well, you're trying to do different things, so yeah.
But it's, I mean, it had a lot of... There were moments in the movie that I was watching thinking, what are the moments that people were horrified that someone might laugh at? And it made no sense to me. Like the scene where he stabs the guy in the neck. That scene, that was like, I felt like that scene was made to make me laugh. I mean, it was just like, you know it's coming, you know he's going to do something. They set it up, like, the timeline from him picking up the scissors to when it happens is so long that you're just ready to laugh when it happens because you know it's coming.
It's not even really that long. But you know it's coming. And the thing about it is that the guy's like, yeah, let's get our stories straight. And it's like, no, I'm not going to get my story straight. You're the one who handed me a handgun and told me go nuts.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really feel sympathy for that guy. So when he gets stabbed in the neck and the entire theater laughs, I was just thinking, yeah, these are good people in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's really weird to me that people interpret laughter at violence in a movie as a sign of mental disturbance. Feel free to if you want, but I mean, I'm there to be entertained, and they're entertaining me. And it was followed up by this comic dialogue between him and the midget.
Yeah.
That
That was one of the best exchanges in the movie.
Oh yeah, because it's just like there's this portion of him. He's clearly over the edge now, and
Right.
and yet he's still got this like sympathetic part of him.
It's not just that, because he lets him go with the full knowledge that he's probably going to bring the police down on him, right? And so he's like either not thinking about it in the future, or he's like, I'll deal with it, you know?
Yeah, or well,
It's a very weird moment, right?
well, it's a great scene too because they actually it takes so long for him to get out of the apartment. And
Right.
there's so many different times where you can think,
There's
is he actually going to end up killing him? Like, you don't know until
Right.
he's fully out of the
Well,
apartment.
you kind of imagine that he will, because you're like, well, I mean, obviously, you know that. So that's one of the things. That's one of the like negative things I could say about this movie, is that it doesn't do a good job of making Joker out to be a mastermind in any way. Because we see the notes that he's writing on like the stand-up comedy, and they're like the notes that like a 6-year-old
Yeah.
would write about stand-up comedy. And we don't ever see him ever really do anything intelligent or read a situation quickly or anything like that. Like the Joker, the character of the Joker, the full-fledged villain in the Batman comics, is extremely intelligent, and I just don't see that from Fleck.
Yeah, there wasn't. You have to kind of imagine that after he stops trying to be sane and live a normal
That he
life,
gets smart suddenly?
Well, no, that he the only thing you can really imagine from that is that like the act of him not caring anymore leads him to fully utilize his imagination and intelligence. Like before,
Okay.
he was holding himself
And
back
he
because
does get off the medication, or at least claims it's claimed that he gets off the medication. So maybe that was slowing him down too. Which is possible.
Yeah, but I mean, just the acting in that scene was particularly good because his body language to the very
Yeah.
moment when he stands
Yeah.
by the door, holding the door open, to right before he closes the door, everything up
Yeah.
until the point at which that guy leaves the room. You can kind of not really tell for sure in his body language if he's about to lunge and kill the guy.
Yeah,
that
and they
was-
even have a couple. They even have a couple of trick starts on that, which is really. It was a really good scene.
Yeah. More decaf coffee. See, I'm off my medication too.
Yeah. Suddenly, you just start talking at half speed.
I had to check real quick because I was looking at Audacity here, and I just kind of said, "Wait a minute, have I even been recording this whole time?" And
Oh my god.
like I am clearly I am because I'm looking at the waveform in front of me, but I had to like double check the record button and make sure it was clicked in. You know, is there a drop
Yeah.
shadow on this? Okay, we're good. Other scenes. There were some scenes that I didn't like. Like I felt like they were trying to tell some story through. Okay. So kind of like I used to tell people it would be funny if someone did an entire remake of the original Jurassic Park, but they never actually showed the dinosaurs. They only showed people's reactions, and people would just say things like, "Oh my God, it's a Tyrannosaurus," and you would hear the roar, but you would never actually see the dinosaur.
Sure.
I kind of
you
felt
told me
like there
about
was
this.
some of that going on in this movie. Like they had the whole thing with the crowd and the protest, and
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that stuff was meant to be in the background.
it was meant to be there so that you know there's things going on, but it's also clear that none of that really matters to to the story. It's just
Well, that's the thing, is that the Joker doesn't care about any of that.
Yeah.
Right? He creates that whole movement almost inadvertently.
yeah, and he's like walking away from it. When he's going to sneak in and talk to Thomas Wayne. So.
Yeah.
So I'm watching this and I'm thinking, okay, I'm sure that's how they meant it to come off. On the other hand, I'm kind of disappointed that I don't get to see more of that story. So there were scenes where I was kind of like, this would have probably been a more interesting movie, to be honest.
The movie was long enough.
It was long enough, and that would have been a different kind of movie.
And it's more in character with the Joker and looking through the Joker's eyes to just not care about that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I mean, it might, you could certainly create a drama around it, but it wouldn't be about the Joker anymore.
Yeah, I guess it's just a thing of the Joker's eyes, seeing through his eyes isn't necessarily that interesting when you get down to it. It's just because really, like, all the things that make a good villain great are the things that happen, that the villain causes to happen. And if you're seeing everything through the villain's eyes, it makes it a lot harder to really give a good story of the broad picture of the chaos that a villain causes. So
maybe,
I mean, so I'm not saying that the scene didn't belong or it didn't work. I'm just saying that, like, after the pacing problem, it's like I started to feel like there was more exciting things happening in the movie, and I wasn't allowed to see them. So I mean, it's a small negative, but I guess if I'm nitpicking,
if it were a series or something like that, you could do a series on that. But
yeah.
no, I think that the movie was long enough. If they added a bunch of scenes where the Joker wasn't in it, it would have reduced the focus.
Yeah. Well, it was a character
as it was,
movie.
The movie was very focused on a character, and I think that their choice to not veer away from that and into something unrelated was probably a smart one.
I'm not saying they should have added more scenes. I'm just saying that I felt like there was something more exciting going on, and I was kind of losing interest.
Well, there is, but that's the point. Is that
like I don't like it when movies make me feel that way, where it's like I'm getting a little bored here. Give me something, but then it's like,
yeah,
I know they're not going to, because this is the character that we're focused on. So
well, by the time the riots were actually happening, the Joker had already read the letter that his mother had written. So I was already interested, because I was like, are they gonna change it up so that, like, somehow the Joker is like Batman's half brother or something like that? Because I was kind of wondering whether they would go in that direction, because that would have been kind of vaguely interesting.
Yeah, they teased like several different things going on there, and then they didn't really tell you which one was true.
Well, I mean, they give you pretty strong indications that Arthur's mother was just nuts, and so it's highly unlikely that there's any actual relationship there. There's always, of course, a slight possibility, but I think they did a pretty good job of trying to be like, no, she's just nuts.
And I just saw the movie, and I'm kind of trying to think if there's any scenes that really warrant much more in depth to talk about. But I mean, overall, it was a good movie. I don't think it was any.
I don't think I'm gonna like watch it 100 times or anything like that. I think once is probably good.
This
enough.
was definitely one of those I'll watch it once and I liked it, and I'm probably never gonna watch it again movies.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that it's not good. Just like
I would probably watch it again if someone wanted me to watch it.
Yeah.
Like if let's hang out and watch the Joker, I'd probably be like, sure. But like, I don't think I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray. And after we're done with this review, I don't think I'm going to talk too much about it again. So
Yeah, and it's a preference.
We get it out of our system.
Yeah, it's kind of a preference thing too. Like I mean, I like a bit more gusto in my films, so I could rewatch
those kind of dark movies are a little hard to watch over and over again. They're pretty kind of depressing.
It depends on what it is. I mean, like I said, it's not even as dark as Higurashi, but I could watch Higurashi over and over.
Well, no, but Higurashi was like way more intense and had a lot more guesswork going on.
Yeah, there was a lot more for you to mull over.
Yeah.
And that's even including the fact that I didn't pick up on the whole what's real and what's not in this movie. So
yeah.
Like, we've already gone through everything that I really want to think about it now. So
no, I mean, I think we're at like 54 minutes. I think we're good for a review.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first 20 minutes, I think we were talking about something else, but it's good enough.
It doesn't matter. All of our reviews are like that.
Yeah. Well, not just our reviews, but like anything we ever talked about politically or anything.
We kind of go off on tangents, and that's just how it goes.
We were talking about brake fluid before we started talking about Hillary Clinton. So.
That's true. I mean, at least these aren't going out to like 9 hours or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, I couldn't talk about this movie for 9 hours. I could talk about Umineko for 9 hours. I'm not going to.
I have talked about Umineko for 9 hours.
I know, because you and I have.
Hell, I could probably spend 9 hours just reading over all the notes I wrote while I was going through Umineko the first time.
I could talk to myself about Umineko for 2 hours straight in a crowd of people.
I've done that too. Yeah. The new one's out.
Ah, yeah. What was the name of that one again?
Kikonia, When They Cry.
I'm I'm much more looking forward to that than I was the Joker movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But the I would recommend the Joker movie to anyone that just wanted to kick back for 2 hours.
If you're willing to watch something dark and gritty and a little crazy, yeah. If you're not in the mood or if you don't have the stomach for it, I would say give it a pass.
If you want something a bit like brighter and a little more cheery, maybe try Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah. Or I mean, any Miyazaki movie would probably be way more cheery than the Joker.
Yeah, yeah. Any single one of them, except for, well, that's a different Miyazaki. Never mind.
Yeah.
And not, I mean, I may as well bring it up now. Tales from Earthsea is like the black sheep of Studio Ghibli movies. I think it is my least favorite of all of them, including the one about the raccoons or tanukis and their testicles. That
Yeah.
I mean, at least with that one, you can just sort of sit back with a horrified grimace on your face, like, why?
What is happening? Why is this their folklore?
This is an hour and a half long, and just think about how long it took them to make it.
Yeah.
They sat there for months drawing this stuff.
Some guy had to draw and animate every frame of this.
Like someone had to have killed themselves in the making. It's just like you're coming into work every day drawing tanuki testicles in.
You know, it probably started out as like a documentary, and then like the guys got so bored drawing it, they're like, "Look, it turned into a boat," and he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go with that."
Well, it's like you heard those stories about people that had to watch videos that are put up on Facebook for anything that's like really bad content, and they start to go a little crazy, and but then you sit them in front of that, and they're like, "No, give me the Facebook job back." Just
anytime.
Pon Poco, ladies and gentlemen, check it out when you hate yourself.
Yeah, basically. I don't think I've ever actually seen it. Thank goodness.
No, you did.
No, I don't think I ever saw Pon Poco. I'm pretty sure I didn't see it. I'm pretty sure we didn't watch that one when we were going through that Ghibli collection that you have.
Well, it's not actually a bad movie. It's just one of them things of like you're sitting there realizing what you're watching while you're watching it, and you're like, why am I watching this?
Like, why am I watching this? And
it is surreal. It is one of the most surreal movies that you'll ever see.
Yeah, I mean it's I've heard stories from you about it enough to know that it is way up there in surrealness. So, anyway,
I think we can end it on the Tanuki testicle note.
Yeah, it turned into a ship.
Yeah, it did, and they sailed away, never to be seen again.
Except in Pon Poco 2.
The new batch.